All right, welcome. It's Monday, May 13th, 2024, and it's 5:30 p.m. This is a regular meeting of the Port of Olympia Commission. It looks like we have all of our commissioners here, and I believe Commissioner Harding is joining us via Zoom. Can we verify that? Is Commissioner Harding on there?
I am here.
Okay. All right. Okay, Pledge of Allegiance, Commissioner Basavado, would you like to lead us?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very much for that. We have an agenda in front of us. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I motion to approve tonight's agenda.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, and then we move to amend.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I have discussion. I would like to, we have speakers in the audience here to tell us about the Small Cities Grant, and I would like to be able to move item J from the advisory after item F, consent calendar. So I'd like to actually move to amend the agenda to move item J directly after item F.
Right, we have a motion to amend the agenda by moving the advisory calendar item J after consent calendar item F. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Is all in favor of moving the advisory calendar? Moving the advisory calendar item J after the consent calendar item F. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, we have an amended agenda. So are we done? I've lost track here. Okay, so we have an agenda. We've amended the agenda. We have an agenda for the evening. So now we can move on to the executive director report.
Hey, thank you, President Ayal. We'll get the executive director report up here. There we go. All right. The first item in the executive director report is just an update on the Capital Little League. As folks may know, since 1999, the Capital Little League has been using ball fields out on property that's actually owned by the Olympia Airport, and it's designated by the FAA for aeronautical use, which technically is to have ball fields there is a technically non-conforming use for the FAA's purposes. But in December of 2023, the Port and the Capital Little League agreed to a new 4-year lease. And in that, it included a memorandum of understanding to see how we could together identify different ball fields for Capital Little League to use over the 4-year life of the lease. So the agreement included establishing a separate bank account for funds that would contribute to that effort of relocating the fields or finding new fields. Also, it set funding goals for the Little League annually. And for 2024, the annual goal was $40,000. And the memorandum of understanding also included meeting semi-annually with the Port to discuss how the progress was and how we can collectively move their efforts forward. And they just had the semi-annual meeting recently, and it turns out that they are already at $36,000 towards their $40,000 target for the calendar year, which is great news. And they are expecting more funds in the coming months. So this collaboration will help over 1,500 local youth find new ball fields and also help the Port comply with FAA regulations for the property. So big kudos to Capital Little League for all their efforts on their fundraising, and they deserve a whole lot of recognition and support. And if you would like to contribute or participate in that, please contact the Port or Capital Little League. The Port also was the presenting sponsor at the 150th anniversary of the Thurston County Chamber. It was, we were the presenting sponsor. It was a great event. It was a fun occasion that not only commemorated 150 years of the Chamber supporting economic development in the county, but it also had a great speech, a very inspiring speech from our very own Commissioner Harding, that talked about the importance of partnerships and how excited the Port is to partner with the variety of groups in our community. So we thank the Port commissioners who were able to attend. And in partnership with the Chamber, we remain committed to participating in the economic growth of our region. Lacey South Sound Chamber Golf Classic. We also supported the Lacey South Sound Chamber in their annual golf classic. It's a fundraiser that bolsters the Lacey Chamber's mission of empowering local businesses within Lacey. And so we were proud to support that event and happy to come out and enjoy a sunny day on a golf course. This past week, we spent time as a director and senior management team at the South Puget Sound Community College facilities in Lacey, and we had a retreat to discuss who we are as leaders. We have a very new leadership team, and how we wanted to lead the team inside the Port and also be leaders externally outside the Port with the community. We had a really great agenda, and we had some awesome conversations around leadership, and we are going to continue those conversations and are excited to gel as a leadership team for the Port. And upcoming next week, oh no, actually this week, is the Washington Public Ports Association annual or spring meeting. It's an annual spring meeting. Some of the commissioners and some of the Port staff will be attending the WPPA meeting, and it's an exciting opportunity to talk to fellow ports and hear about what they're doing in terms of economic development and environmental stewardship, and share ideas and learn from them. So I'm very excited and to go and join some of our commissioners. And once again, our very own Commissioner Harding will be speaking at that on the opportunities for developing economic opportunities using real estate. Right. And we just came today. We had our commissioners came out and toured the marine terminal and also toured the Weyerhaeuser portion of the log yard out on the marine terminal, learning about the stormwater treatment system, learned about Weyerhaeuser's operations, and then also learned about Cascade Pool Treatment Site and the groundwater treatment plant out on the north end of the peninsula. So we thank Weyerhaeuser very much for hosting us and even providing some cookies and water. And also to our marine staff for leading the tour and sharing what the Port does and the pride they take in the work that they do out there. Then we were very sad on last Friday. It was the last day for our Swantown Marina and Boatworks manager, TJ Quant. We had a farewell barbecue for him last Friday in the sunshine. And he's beginning an exciting new journey as the director of operations at the Port of Kitsap. TJ has been commuting to our port from Port Townsend, and he has sacrificed a lot of family time. He's got some kids who are still at home, and he's been sacrificing family time to be working at the port. And so we're very excited. He's got an opportunity closer to home, and he can spend more time with his family. From organizing community events like Summer Nights at the Port and Movies at the Marina to overseeing the management of the Billy Frank Jr. Park and Trail, as well as the Marina and the Boatyard, TJ leaves behind a legacy of excellence and community enrichment. TJ said he had the privilege of working alongside some of the most dedicated, talented, and fun people, and he can honestly say that he couldn't imagine working with a better group. And so TJ will never be forgotten, and he'll always be part of the Port of Olympia family. And as always, we value your input, and here are the various opportunities for folks to provide input. Commission meetings on our website, on our social media. Again, we're starting up our port tours again in this good weather. Also direct calls and emails. If you look at our website, there's contact information there. But always request a meeting with port staff or request a port staff to come and speak. And I believe that is it. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Director Smith, are there any questions or comments? Commission. All right, we will move on then to public comment. Individual public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Members of the public may comment on agenda items and other port business. Guidelines for public comment can be found on the commission rules and resolution 2022-09, Article 6. Comments should be directed to the commission as a whole and should not include comments about individual port staff or members of the public. All speakers shall be courteous in language and demeanor and shall confine remarks to those facts that are germane and relevant to the question or issue under discussion. Looks like we have Bob Jacobs. Bob Jacobs, would you like to speak, sir?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Bob Jacobs. For the record, I live at 720 Governor Stevens Avenue in Olympia. At the recent town hall meeting, Alex mentioned that a new marine terminal person with good international connections is out there searching for business. I'm sure this was well intended, but my reaction was to think of the commonly used definition of insanity, which is that insanity is to keep on doing what you've been doing before and expecting a different outcome. Some very good people have done their best to increase marine terminal business for decades. Some of these went on to be port directors in other jurisdictions. They all failed. The marine terminal loses money in good years and in bad years. In addition to marketing, some silver bullets have been tried at great expense and without success. This includes crane, a large warehouse, a dockside rail connection, and another bigger crane. These were all to fix things. Over the years, port managers and commissioners have also attempted to conceal the financial situation in various ways, a practice that continues today. You'll get a budget briefing later and it will include wrong information. When running for office, port commissioners have routinely promised they would get the marine terminal back in the black, but it has never worked. For decades, commissioners have preferred to play make-believe rather than face up to this difficult financial situation. The result has been losses totaling tens of millions of dollars, which represent subsidies to Weyerhaeuser and other special interests. You know, in business, when an operation loses money for even a few years, management looks for the reason. And if the problem can't be fixed, the operation is terminated. It is way past time to stop playing make-believe. This is simply no longer a feasible location for a marine terminal. It hasn't been for over a half century. Everyone knows it. Look at the map. I provided you with copies of a brief paper on this topic that I wrote in 1990, 34 years ago. It's been provided to generations of port commissioners. Please read it. Please face the facts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobs. Up next is Carla Wolfsburg.
Hello, Commissioners. Good evening. My name's Carla Wolfsburg and I live in Tumwater. And I see that on your agenda tonight under G, pending issues, is the 2023 year-end financial report. And I just would like to present some information that was provided by a local financial expert who identified problems in this report. And this really attributes to the issue of transparency that you and the public should have, knowing about all of your business units. So this is the information. That your report shows that operating income as revenue minus the operating expense. There is no accounting for the $1,239,000 of interest. And you can find this information on page 50 of that report. Also, the report shows that principal and interest of $4.6 million paid out of taxes off the top without allocating it to the various functions, and that's on page 47. And Then the environmental expenses of $3 million is paid out of taxes off the top without allocating it to the various functions. That's also on page 47. And the summary is that every cost should be functionalized. So that's that report. And then I just wanted to address something that's been my concern for a long time, and that's about your plans to move forward with the development of the Port Peninsula, including this waterfront center. And I know that it's all revolving around the Swantown Marina staff that really need healthy office space. So I just wish that you could consider replacing their current double wide with a new double wide and be done with that so that you could focus and the staff can focus on cleaning up the Bud Inlet. And you have to raise lots of money for that. We know you do. So why spend time trying to raise money for a waterfront center when really the cleanup should be all of our focus right now? I think you would get a lot of support for that, certainly mine. And including this waterfront center, I know that you're putting a lot of credence on Thomas Architecture's surveys in 2021. I consider them flawed surveys. I took both survey 1 and 2, and the questions were lots of photographs, and you could choose from the photographs for like style of architecture, shore improvement, so forth. But there was never an opportunity to say none of the above, or please suggest an alternative. And I had a lot of alternatives to that. So I see that my time's run out, but I hope you would consider these concepts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wolfsberg. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to make a public comment?
Yes, Shina.
Ms.
Hi,
Wysok?
I'm Shina Wysocki, and I am a board member. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go right ahead.
Great. I am a board member of there's Olympia and Beyond of the Tourism Board, and I also own a business in downtown Olympia, Chelsea Farms Oyster Bar. My family are shellfish farmers in South Puget Sound, and I just wanted to support the development of the downtown waterfront area. I recreate down there frequently, and I think it's a huge asset that Olympia would appreciate access to the waterfront with activities and recreation for people to enjoy. It also is an area that is already developed. It has, sewer, water, electricity down there. It is already an impervious surface that makes sense to have buildings built on, where we can leave nature where it already exists and develop something positive for our community where it does not. And so I just wanted to support the development of the downtown waterfront area. I think it would bring new tax dollars to our area and lots of enjoyment for our local residents also.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wysocki. Anyone else on Zoom would like to make public comment?
Reiner.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Ms. Reiner, go right ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate hearing from Executive Director Alex tonight about a lot of important issues that have been going on. I think it's very exciting. We have several new port commissioners. We have new ears, new eyes on the ground, looking at all these different options for the Port of Olympia. And I thank everyone for working so hard. And the only reason we're doing this is because we've lived here most of our lives and we love this place with a great deal of love. And so I wanted to mention the development of the waterfront. I know that the Strategic Plan 2025 was mentioned during the retreat. As has been said before, many of us were participants in that survey, and many of us feel that the survey was vitally flawed. It did not have options to choose. It only said X, Y, and then you had to choose the options in the survey. And if we wanted other options, we of course, were not given the chance to do that. And of course, as was presented during the retreat, only around 400 people participated in that survey. We have 300,000 people in this county. And so I believe there was not a big turnout for that Vision 2050. And I believe the facts as was presented during the retreat were terribly flawed. And I know that the POTAC, the Port of Olympia Citizens Advisory Committee, looked over Strategic Plan 2025, and the POTAC had a special committee to do this. And they argued and they worked over it again and again. And the bottom line is that result of that Strategic Plan 2025, those surveys were flawed. And POTAC gave it back to port staff and said, this document, this result is terribly flawed. It should not be used as a decision-making tool for the Port of Olympia. So that is what your Citizen Advisory Committee said to you. I also just wanted to mention using recreation down at Port of Olympia. The isthmus is covered with dioxin. That is a toxic element in the soil. And if you go out there and swim, you or your children will be impaired. So anybody who thinks they're going to be able to use the waters around the isthmus for recreation, you better wake up. The Department of Health, Washington State Department of Health, has put signs out there telling people do not use this water because it is toxic. We hope the $200 million cleanup that you're engaged in now will help the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reiner. Any other public comment?
Hands raised.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for your public comment. Moving on now to the consent calendar. We have one item on the consent calendar. We have minutes from January 22nd, 29th, February 8th, February 12th, February 13th, February 20th, special commission meeting on February 20th, work session on February 26th, March 11th, March 18th, March 25th, April 1st, April 15th, April 22nd, and May 6th. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Motion to approve the consent calendar. Is there a second?
Okay.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 There's no room for discussion, right?
No, not usually. Yeah. All right, so were there any opposed?
Nay.
The consent calendar passes 5-1. Moving on now to item J that was moved up, the advisory calendar, which we have one item in the advisory calendar, which is the Port of Olympia Small Cities Program. Pat Koff, Director of Finance, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Isle. I'll get a brief presentation to go through before our presenters come on. Again, this is a recap of the Small Cities Program. And this is advisory tonight, so they'll be speaking to you. Presentations of the program submissions as received to date. Is there a question?
I thought we moved, oh yeah, I see. Got it. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Okay, that's fine. So the presentations tonight are of the submissions that we've received and the participants that are interested in taking part in the program. It's a small cities program schedule. This is was budgeted in 2024 for a total of potentially 5 participants of $50,000. I believe there are 4 that are participating or slated to participate with possibly receiving up to $10,000. And this is a matching program. So they will have to spend to get, so to speak. Any questions and comments on how that works? Okay. The program schedule, from this point remaining, we're in mid-May. There's a commission work session, reviewing it, which we are in. And then May 28th, there will be an awards, made, depending on what's selected, if they all are or not, or some. And then with the year-end deadline for submitting, costs for the program to be matched and then paid out through the board. I've got a copy of the tax levy slide just for a refresher of, the tax levy usage and where the small cities program comes in off the 2024 year budget. That's the line in yellow. It increased from 40,000 to 50,000 this year, to accommodate, more participants. And that's it for the kind of the recap. I will cede the floor to those that are here in person and or online, I believe. Is that correct? Missy, do you have the,
You have some folks online.
okay, so I will leave that up, and then who am I introducing first? Who would like to go first? Okay. You have the mic, sir.
Well, thank you for inviting us. My name is Dave Watterson. I'm the mayor of Tenino, and I'm here to kind of recap of what we've done with the small city grants. And first, I want to say thank you for supporting us over the years with these grants. It's kind of a unique situation where we can get these small grants to do some of the smaller things. And I'll talk about some of the things we've done. When you go for state or federal grants, often they're very large and very complicated. So these grants really allow us to do some smaller projects that probably would not get done otherwise if we were seeking money in, federally or in the state. So some of the things we've done with the grants, in 2021, we had a large state or city-owned parking lot behind in our downtown that was just gravel and had big potholes in it. We used this money to level that and pave it, which really increased the off-street parking for people coming to visit our community. And I think it was a great project. In 2022, we did a facade improvement grant. So we did small grants to a lot of our businesses in the core of the city to improve their storefronts, to make them look better, be more attractive to people coming to our community. Another one that was very successful. In 2023, we did Music in the Park with the money, and it attracted many out of the area visitors. So it drew people into our community. And in 2024, we're asking for $10,000 to do a kind of a pilot project for some, to put a little, I don't know, you would call it a small facility in our park for people to stay in. Our city has no place for people to stay when they come to events. So they come to an event in the city and they travel to Tumwater or Rochester to stay. And so we're trying to figure out a way to keep people in town if they're there for a longer period of time. So we're just doing a test project to build a small facility, something above a tent, but not a Taj Mahal in our city park that people can rent out. So we're going to just build one of those and see how it goes and kind of give a proof of concept that we can apply for a bigger grant, possibly state or federal grant, to put some, build some additional places in our park for people to stay. I don't know that will be the answer for all our needs along that line, but it's something that's been tossed around for a long time. We've worked with several people to, think about how this would work. And I think it'll be a good project for our city. And our city staff's going to do all the work, the building. They've already identified a building to build, and they're going to do the work. So our matching, I think, is going to be the in-kind work that they're going to do to build that. So those are just the last 4 years, what we've done with that money. So anyway, as far as that goes, I really appreciate your support in this, and it does make a difference in our small communities. So I thank you for continuing to do that. And I look forward in 2024 to being able to do a little project in our city that hopefully will lead to something bigger for people to visit our town. So anyway, that was small city grants. If I'm up here, can I just kind of tell you briefly what other things are going on since I'm here, or do you want me to do that later? I'll stay.
Yes, I mean, if you want to take a minute to do that, that's fine.
Just real quickly, since I was here last time, and we just acquired 60 acres of property that was deeded to us in a grant from the Angela J. Bowen Foundation. We got $460,000 from them to preserve 60 acres of forest land that we're going to develop some trails in, but keep it forested for eternity. And I think that's a great thing for our community, double the size of our park. Just got a $500,000 federal grant to help keep continuing improvements in our ag park out there. So that's another huge one we got. Just received $360,000 for charging infrastructure at our ag park, which is going to be high-speed charging, probably the first high-speed charger, I think, in a small city in Thurston County. So that's another great one. 95,000 we just were notified for energy efficiency improvements for low-income people that we are getting from the state. We haven't accepted that yet. It has to be accepted by Thursday, so that'll be soon. And we just applied for 1.5 million for a biodigester project that will be at our ag park or our wastewater treatment plant. We're still waiting to hear on that one. And we also applied for a grant for improving our pool, shower and bathroom facilities at our swimming. I'm drawing a blank.
Corey?
The Quarry Pool, yes. Our bathrooms were built in the 1960s and they are not adequate. So we're going to try to build some updated facilities there. So we've been very successful since I saw you last on grants and millions of dollars in grants. So I hope we're good stewards of the money that you give us, and we'll do our best to make sure we use it wisely.
Thanks. All right, thank you, Mayor.
Point of privilege, two questions.
Sure.
Is the quarry pool going to be open this summer, Mayor?
Got our finger. The only hurdle we're waiting on right now is Department of Health. As I guess you probably know, when you make changes, they require you to upgrade a lot of things. Our old facilities didn't meet ADA standards. So that's part of this issue that we're working with right now is trying to upgrade our old bathrooms good enough that they'll let us get by for this year until we can. So we're just waiting to hear from them, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be open, but we still haven't got the final word from them. But yes.
One more question. The facility you're building that's like, you haven't said you haven't called it a cabin, you haven't called it a yurt.
It's
Very mysterious.
yeah, it's not a yurt. I think that what they want to look at is just a small, like I don't even know what to call it, a park model. It's not like one of those park models that are on wheels, but it's a smaller.
Manufactured.
Yeah, kind of like a manufactured or prefabricated, that we can build.
And
inside.
this is in the park where you already have
The old
camping.
part, we got camping areas over there. So yeah, so we want to do several of them, but we kind of want to make sure that it's going to be used and we can, provide the service in a good way. So yes, a little bit above a tent, but not much.
Super.
Enclosed, yeah.
I read in the application, it's a cabin kit.
Cabin kit. All right.
Well, apparently they've already, identified a kit that they can build, so. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who's next?
George?
George, you want to go next?
Good evening, Councilor. I'm George Sharp. I'm the Rural Program Manager for the Thurston Economic Development Council. I ran our STEADY program, which stands for South Thurston Economic Development Initiative. And STEADY supports all of our rural communities, Rochester, Grand Mound, Lakota, Tenino, Rainier, and Yelm. We meet on a monthly basis to support those communities. We also at the EDC have contracts with the Rochester Grand Mound Chamber for me to be a staff member because they're a small chamber that doesn't have enough money to put a staff on. So they get me, and I'm also a staff member to the Tenino Area Chamber of Commerce. We have a contract with the city for us to provide economic development services to the city of Tenino. But we support all of these rural communities. And I'm here tonight to support the Rochester Grand Mound Chamber of Commerce and advocate for what you're doing because this is new. Because STEADY has been advocating since 2017 that you support Grand Mound Rochester area the similar that you did the other small cities. And because they weren't incorporated at that time, there was some kind of way that they couldn't. But now that we can, we appreciate it. Appreciate Commissioner Harding advocating for that since 17 or when she became a commissioner on that as well. And tonight we're talking about their Heritage Project. And I believe this is going to be a great catalyst project for the community to preserve and save their historical documents, their photographs, and their oral histories that we'll be able to then to share with our citizens down there, including the tribal community, but also for visitors. And personally, I have big plans how we're going to help support taking that information and putting it at all the fairs and festivals that they have down in Rochester, maybe having a mini display in some of the businesses that they have, and then at the facility to have a small place where we can have 1 or 2 displays on there, but also a possible recording room where we can do more oral histories as we go forward. And so I'm going to support that project. I've already dedicated to them 5 hours of my time a month to help make sure that this project goes forward and to help them find and identify future funding based on what they do here tonight and the other funding they've already got to make sure it succeeds. We also have in line tonight, Donna Weaver, who has been the catalyst of this project and the one that led it and is taking it forward. So Donna, if you could step on and share the rest of the story. Hopefully she will.
Let's do an unmute, I suppose. All right, so I'm Donna Weaver. I would say I'm probably the 5th generation here in the Rochester area of my family. I'm sitting here looking at a hard copy bound Washington School Register for the Grand Mound School for the years of 1899 through 1901. These hard books have the registrar's attendance records and the names of all the children that attended through those years. I believe I have probably 10 more books similar to this that have no place to go. They're in a box in a garage, and when I am long dead and gone, if they do not have a place to be housed, they will be likely tossed in the garbage. So it's very important, in my opinion, that we begin the process of working towards a facility that will house our local documents and history, as George said. And I appreciate the opportunity that the port is giving to the Rochester area, even though we are not considered a city. But I really appreciate their listening, as the George has said, working with Steady since 2017, trying to understand why we weren't as important as the other guys. So I think that's all I need to say. George, did you find that I covered it?
No, let's talk about what the impetus of this whole thing was, which is Donna had been working on what was called the Horizons Project for over 8 years to build up that community. It was called Weed and Seed before the Horizon Project. It was really to support the community. And they had 8 years of records that were with Bill Lytle. Well, Bill passed away and we didn't know that. And then his family came to town and took all those records and threw them away. And that was the impetus of this project of why we want to get. Then we started to talk to other people, and Gene Weaver has a garage full in fireproof cabinets, 8 cabinets that have a lot of records in that. And then other people say, well, I have this that we'd like to donate if you get this project up and running. So that was the impetus of that. And that's why I believe in the project, to save and preserve and share the history of down there. The tribal folks down there are also interested in this project, and Jesse Upton is one of the tribal members who has came, and we've had 2 meetings with the smaller group to say, what do we want this to grow into? And she's being an advisor to us about the Chehalis tribe too. So that's the importance of this project. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments for George?
I have a comment.
Yes, Commissioner Harding.
I just want to say, Donna, it wasn't that you weren't as important. We just had to logistically find a way to include you. So thank you for your tenacity. One question that came up for me was, well, why don't we just send these records, these important things to University of Washington or somewhere where they already have these systems in place. And I was reminded that it's really important from an equity perspective that local people have access to their history. And so that's what's really cool about this project is we're not shipping this away far away where the people who really have a connection to the history won't be able to access it. We're keeping it in the community. So thank you so much for your advocacy, you guys.
Donna, real quickly, tell them about the experience when you went to the state archives and there wasn't much there about Grand Mountain or Rochester area, but do it quickly, please.
We spent 3 days, my cohort and I, Kathy Hangartner, in the state archives. Number one, we were able to make 2-hour appointments for each day. We needed appointments, needed to be scheduled. And we looked through all those archives that they had available for us to see, to look for Rochester, Grand Mound, Gate, Tribal, all those histories. They have very little, although they do have a lot of history in boxes down in the basement that has never been cataloged. So the fear, Amy, of sending a lot of these documents into a facility that may or may not archive them so they are researchable scares me to pieces. So thank you again. That's kind of the story as I see it. And Amy, yes, I know we're just as important as everyone else. I just am whiny sometimes.
The
Thanks,
squeaky,
you guys.
the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So thanks for sticking with it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rochester. Who's next?
I'm asking to unmute Rainier Mayor Robert Shaw.
Welcome, Rainier Mayor Robert Shaw.
Well, thank you. I'm hoping to start my video.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. Hopefully you can see me. I thank you for the time and allowing me to do this in Zoom as I'm over in Spokane area and over here for the whole week. So like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you and tell you what we would like to use our grant money with this year. Like Mr. Watterson had said, we've used the grant money for numerous projects. The last few years, we've spent it to help renovate our church as you come into City of Rainier. We redid that quite a bit in the last 4 or 5 years, and we used some of the grant small city money for that. We've also used it in a new park that we had deeded over to us from one of our developers, and we opened it up and developed it into a little pocket park in one of our neighborhoods. We've also used it to do some sewer feasibility studies to get us closer to getting sewer in Rainier. This year, we would like to, and you've seen our application, we're doing a lot of work at Wachowski Park. And we would like to put in some paved campsites. And we've got a walkway. If you've been out to Wachowski Park, there's an asphalt walkway that winds you kind of through. It's a walking trail that desperately needs to be redone. It gets used. Our We Love Rainier group uses it for a trick or treat at Halloween, and they have cars parked all along there, and it's a nice trail going through the trees. We'd like to get that repaid for that. They also use it for their Easter egg hunt, and it's kind of dangerous. So that's one of the things we want to repave, going all the way through there, add some paved parking areas and overnight camps sites. We're adding a stage to be used during the bluegrass festivals, and some other additional fencing around that facility. So that's what we would like to, we're earmarking, and in our budget, we have $80,000 for that whole entire project that I just talked about. So getting 10,000 for the port commissioners for small city grant would be very useful and help us with that project. And some other things going on in that Wachowski Park area down there is we're getting new bathrooms that Thurston County is putting up. Should be starting in the next 30 days. And we'll have new bathrooms, just like bathrooms that are put out at Boston Harbor here in the last 6 months. And also where our basketball court is, we will be putting up 4 pickleball courts here in the next couple of months. We've already got a contractor hired, and that they're just waiting for the weather to break so we can, when they get ready to do the paving and putting putting the surface down for the pickleball courts, it needs to be good, nice, warm weather. And while they're doing that, we're resurfacing the basketball court that's out there, and we're gonna include it all into one sports complex and fence the basketball court and the pickleball courts and put some walkways in between there. And, that's another project we're doing also that will tie into the Wachowski Park project that we're asking you for some funding. So again, I appreciate everything you've done for our city in my term, tenure as the mayor. I'm working on year 9 out here. And if you have any questions, I would answer them.
All right, any questions or comments for Mayor Shaw?
Thank you, Commission.
Yep, sounds like we're good. Thank you, Mayor, for being here.
Thank you for allowing me to do it over Zoom.
Yeah. Anyone else? No? Okay, so that's the conclusion then, Ted, is that correct?
That's the conclusion. I think we've got 4 applicants. I don't know which one did not. Dakota was not able to make it in
Okay.
this evening then. But I do believe we've got their application in. So as I said before, this is just a presentation. So there's no action item tonight. So that concludes the presentations, and we will move on to a working session down the road.
All right, thank you very much. So was there any public comment on the advisory items this evening? Would anybody like to make public comment? Anybody on Zoom?
No hands raised on Zoom.
No hands raised, no one jumping up to the podium, so we'll move on to pending issues or business. This evening we'll have a briefing on the 2023 year-end financial report. Tad Koff, Director of Finance, you are back up.
Good evening, Commissioners. Back on stage, Tad Koff, Director of Finance for the Port of Olympia. I am going to do a little bit of reading because this is kind of a detailed reporting, and there's the old one. There's the in between. And there we go. Introducing, I've got all 4 operating units on my intro slide to represent the covering finances for the entire port tonight. This is, as I said, the 2023 year-end financial report. It's a briefing. There's no action required. This is results of operations, statement of net position, state auditor financial health indicators, the FIT financial intelligent tool measurements, and port financial measures from policy 1202. I do want to point out in 2023, there were significant amount of GASB adjustments in prior year's presentations. Those were split out separately and then presented separately, and I've combined them together because going forward, those GASB statements are in force and has to be included in the reporting. Quick listing of GASB adjustments that impacted the 2023 financials was GASB 87, affecting lease accounting adjustments, GASB 68 affecting PERS, GASB 75 affecting OPEB, GASB 32 affecting insurance. There was another GASB that worked with computer leases or contracts, but that was found not to be applicable or have any impact. I'd also like to point out that from the slides that were presented to you, slides 4 through 7 have a change. The prior 2 years of 21 and 22 had an error on them, so I only have the I'm presenting the 2023 budget versus actual without the prior 2 years because they had errors on them. Moving on. First slide is going to be the business unit financial report. This has got a few sections to it, and it is worth keeping in mind that this is a gross operating income before depreciation. That includes things like fees, labor, and rents received. Operating and maintenance expenses include salaries, outside professional services, and rental costs and utilities. General administrative overhead includes costs for executive marketing, accounting, and engineering activities. And I also added on here, due to public comment and interest, I believe there used to be displayed years ago, bond interest expense. And although this is a truncated report, I do have it by operational unit. So that represents the bond interest expense for our outstanding bonds and the proportionate amount that applies to those business units. That is 1.23 million overall. The balance not shown on that bottom line is actually goes over to environmental operations, which is not an operating unit, so it will not show on this slide. So that said, if we go through and look at the airport, the marina, the terminal, and properties, our gross operating income in that order was from the airport 1.86 million, marina 500,000, the terminal was 1.7 million, and properties at just over 500,000, totaling 4.6 million for gross operating income. Depreciation applied to those specifically on those lines was 931,000 in depreciation for the airport, 716,000 for the marina, 1.7, almost 1.8 million for the terminal, and $388,000 for properties. To take a moment of education on what depreciation is, and I'll say it succinctly, it is the matching of an asset that was purchased that gets used in the generating of revenue. And when we do depreciating or we take the useful life of an item, let's say 20, 30 years, this is the one selection of that item's use that generated the revenue that matches it. So let's say you had a truck that you drove for a year and you'd made deliveries every month. But part of the cost for each month that that truck gets used to make the part of the revenue of each month that it generates is how that matches up. So it's a kind of a succinct way of saying it. I don't know if that is clear enough. I'd almost want to have a little diagram on that, but depreciation is something that is always a confusing thing for many people. And then the bond interest expense is the interest paid on the bonds that are outstanding. If you were to look at our website and go through what each bond was issued against, this represents the interest on those bonds by where they actually the dollars. Any questions on that slide before I move on? I'm going to go through each of these slides. They're going to be similar. The next 4 slides are the operating units. These are the net income from the operating units. So they're only going to have net operating or net operation. They're only going to have costs from operations and income from operations, not non-operating segments. So these have fully incorporated all the GASB adjustments that I mentioned before so that they will better match the state of reporting when we do that, so that there are more transparent and is better a better representation of the facts. They deviate from the past years in that GASB's, when they were reported, were often reported in two separate sections. GASB was broken out during the reporting. As I said, in this reporting, it's going to be combined because it's required reporting. All government accounting standards boards impacted 2023. GASB statements, I went through this about 87, 86, 83, 75, and 32 about the GASB adjustments that were made. Bond interest expense is not part of these figures as it is a non-operating expense, which is why it's not included in these numbers. This is true for the next 3 business unit slides as well. On this slide specifically, the airport revenue held steady. Operations and management maintenance went down while general and administrative costs. Sorry, lost my place. While general administrative costs increased, but at the budgeted amount. Reduced O&M costs helped contribute to increased profitability. And on this and the other slides, G&A increased significantly from prior years. This large increase was across the board, not solely due to one cost segment, but the changes in staffing in executive roles and the department turnover contributed to these increases in compensation related costs for 2023. We had a lot of things going on in 2023. The airport came in roughly $600,000 over budgeted revenue and came in roughly $300,000 under budgeted operating and maintenance costs, resulting in a net income of $930,000. Any questions on the airport? Yes.
Ted, my question's not specifically on the airport, but we heard a public comment that referred to page 47, and I am having trouble.
I'm having the same trouble.
That
There are only 26 slides. I don't have 47 pages, so I'm not entirely sure what that's
well, I
referring
can
to.
follow up later with that.
Okay, yeah, I'm welcome. I'm happy to clear up any questions on that.
Okay.
I couldn't follow what that was referring to specifically. You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. There's a lot to go through, so I'm going to keep plowing ahead. 2023 Marina net income from operations. The Marina performed well, very close to budget, coming in slightly better than budgeted in net income. It was budgeted to come in at a loss of 285,000, but came in at a loss of 216, almost 217,000. So shaved it off and moving towards profitability. Terminal, the terminal operation, the terminal was very close to breaking even in terms of net income. It generated roughly $200,000 over its 2023 budgeted revenues and roughly $900,000 under budgeted operating and maintenance costs. I know there's a lot of work being done out there to really rein in costs and take a look at things and make the operation much more efficient. So this reduced the budgeted 1.2 million net income loss to just under $100,000. So again, getting very close to breaking even and moving into the positive zone. 2023 properties net income from operations. Properties generated roughly $300,000 over their 2023 budgeted net revenues. Came in at 161,000 under their budgeted operating and maintenance costs, resulting in a net positive income of $157,000. Please feel free to stop me at any time. Otherwise, I'm going to have to keep asking, do you have any questions? So feel free.
Well, okay.
Yes, go ahead.
I mean, thank you for, so you're saying that the surplus is in part because their operating and maintenance expenses were lower. How does that happen? Like, why were those expenses lower? Did we not do maintenance? Did we have?
I can answer the specifics on that. I didn't want to get into the deep dive of all the reasons, but I will say this in the interest of moving forward. That is something that we're going to look to trying to get more on these kinds of reporting is the whys of certain fluctuations in how they track. So in 2024, we're going to move to better report that.
Thank you. And I'm going to hold that kind of question also because I understand we'll have a deeper dive in June. So I'll try to take those notes and.
Right, so we're gonna be doing quarterly reporting, and on the quarterly reporting, we'll have also more of that, exactly kind of a deeper dive into the business units. Moving on to the tax levy uses slide. This one is actually not particularly surprising. It went about as expected, with the one exception being that there is roughly $1 million of cost of environmental that moved from 2023 that's moving into 2024. Just some of the costs of what was planned to go have moved in, and we all know there's a lot of environmental activity going on in this year as well.
Sorry.
Yes.
So is that, one of the comment was that environmental expenses didn't seem to be attributed to the lines of business. Now, this is this is how tax levies were used. Is it the case that the use of those levies is not then attributed within the slides for like airport net?
Correct.
And okay.
So those are operating units, and those are all operating costs, because the environmental costs are non-operating costs where they get reported. They're just in a different section. That's how accounting reports those costs. So they won't be attributed against each operating unit per se. There's not a prescribable percentage that can be put against that. Meaning that that operation didn't generate any of the costs of environmental activities. It's just that's cleanup.
Like, is it because you're saying that cleanup is like Cascade Pole that has to do with historic operations?
Yep.
That's why they're not attributable. But if we had cleanup associated with like stormwater treatment at the marine terminal for active business, would that be incorporated in the marine terminal?
That would be, yeah, that would be a direct cost to that.
So the challenge is how we're defining the ones that aren't allocated are environmental expenses that actually are unrelated to any current business unit, but probably have to do with past business units. You don't have to answer that. When we come back, I'd love next month, maybe we can clarify that if you're not sure.
No, I'm sure I can just show it to you in better detail of where those costs live.
Great, thank you.
Excellent question, by the way. This is a slide that I've added completely separate from prior presentations, and it is kind of a condensed comprehensive income statement. It was not. It was not in last year's presentation. So this goes through 2023 actual versus budget with the variance next to it of operating revenues, operating expenses, maintenance expenses. And then there was a section that if I had put it on here, it would become virtually impossible to read, with depreciation, interest expense, overhead, and cost allocation between non-operations, which is a segment largely cancel each other out. And then a net operating income loss, or the net operating costs of non-operating revenues, non-operating expenses, resulting in the total income for the overall port. So that being said, the 2023 budget for total income was only coming in at $329,000 positive, and the actual came in at $4.6 million positive. That also is attributable for across the board. There were incremental improvements. We did a bit better in revenue. We did better in maintaining and in cutting our operating expenses. Our maintenance expenses were a bit improved, and our operating revenues down below as well contributed as well to that almost $4.3 million improvement over what was originally budgeted for total income. Questions? Capital investments plan. This one, reviewing our 2023 capital investments plan, we had budgeted $2.7 million and spent just under $1 million. That is largely due to the staffing changes, or some uncontrollable delays in some of the projects, such as at the airport. And the costs for capital projects in 2023 came in much lower than expected, but many of those projects have been moved to 2024. When we went through the budget in 2024, if you recall, there were several projects that shifted into that year, and that is a large part of why you see this below budgeting level on here. With more stable staffing levels and an improved management situation, it's expected that this area should much better match expectations in 2024, not have this large delta here. Statement of net position for the port as well. In essence, a statement of net position is a governmental reporting equivalent to a balance sheet. It's a snapshot in time of the last day of the fiscal year and is of the port's calendar year. And it tells you that basically what you have in assets versus what you owe in liabilities. This reporting, the relationship of that it represents is the basis of many of the ratios used to judge the financial health of the operation that you're going to see coming up with the FIT requirements and our 1202 requirements as well for port health, financial health. Yes.
Todd, this asset number, would this largely just be the property value of the real estate land property values or
So-
something else?
Well, current liabilities, since this current assets are current assets are just everything that you got that's like cash. And then capitalized assets are yes, the properties that you've got as well. But then you've got also current liabilities consist of obligations that are payable within a year. And then non-current liabilities are also obligations that go beyond a year, such as the bond debt, the long-term bond debt. Another liabilities in this case would be leases, OPEB, and pensions amounts. Any other questions? So moving on from the state auditor financial health indicators or FIT guidelines, we're going to look at the revenue state auditor's office financial intelligence tool. So FIT stands for current ratio, the debt load, cash balance sufficiency, and the enterprise fund cost recovery. So the SAO FIT ratio or the current ratio, we first have the current ratio, which is also a performance measure of the port policy 1202 that the port policy 1202 utilizes. This ratio is calculated by taking current assets, dividing them by current liabilities. The state's benchmark is greater than or equal to 1, whereas our goal for the port we hold is 1.75. For the 2023 current ratio, let's see, the 2023 current ratio, the ports shows the port's ability to pay its short-term obligations that are due within 1 year. So we are coming in at a healthy 2.5 to almost 2.6%. And we're maintaining that since 22. The SAO FIT ratio for the debt load.
These are cash assets though?
Yeah, no, from the balance sheet. The assets. Like add your
Current
assets or
current liabilities.
that position.
Right. The SAO FIT ratio or the debt load, this second FIT ratio goes into calculating, it's calculated by dividing the debt service, which is the principal plus interest by total revenues. In the past, we've seen this is being recommended as being less than 12%, which we are approaching. And although currently there's no benchmark listed, the port, as the port pays off its outstanding bond debt obligations, this ratio is expected to continue to improve, barring the assumption or any new debt being issued. So we're tracking well. Good. And as you know, that bond debt is going to be largely alleviated within the 5th year, 2028. I believe we go down to just under $1 million in servicing a year, which is on here. You've got still 3.31 million in principal and 1.239 in interest being paid. So that is going in the correct direction and anticipated to continue to do so. The only thing that might throw this off or even make it much better is if we do something significant with the CBC building, and when we look at that bond debt later in the year, and we look at debt restructuring, that could have a big effect. SAO FIT cash balance sufficiency. The FIT ratio is the cash balance sufficiency ratio. Ratio measures how many days of operating expenses are held in reserves. The result is this result is the cash needed to pay to operate. The ending unrestricted cash on hand divided by the cash needed per day to operate results in the number of days operating expenses held in reserve. The state's auditor's office recommends that 60 days minimum, and the port has well exceeded that, and we are presently at 469 days in operating reserves. Tracking up in cash. SAO FIT Enterprise Fund cost recovery. The last FIT ratio we'll review is the Enterprise Fund cost recovery ratio. This ratio indicates whether an enterprise fund is able to recover its costs considering all operating and non-operating revenue sources. A measure of 100 or greater indicates that the fund is successful in the full cost of service. This is calculated by taking the change in net position and dividing it by total expenses. The state auditor's office recommends a greater than or equal to 100%. As of the end of the year of 23, we've got a recovery percentage of 121.6. We have come down a little bit in that in 2023. I don't anticipate a downward trend starting. We are in a healthy position. And I'm going to lose my voice before I get done with this for sure. Financial measures specifically for policy 1202 for the port. Reasonable progress towards these goals means not every target is reached every year, but that over a 5-year period, there is an overall movement towards the goal. We're going to look at minimum cash reserves, debt service, return on operating revenue, annual operating cash flow, maintenance, insurance, and environmental, financial capacity, and a return on productive assets. So we'll start out in this section with liquidity, minimum cash reserves. The minimum cash reserves, the goal is outlined in the policy. And I think that we might want to review that because it has stayed that way for quite some time, of $4 million. And the port for 2023 had an ending unrestricted cash balance of 19.7 million. So we are doing well on that front. Liquidity policy, 1202, under section 1202. Debt service coverage, no revenue bonds are outstanding. Other measurements, we don't have any revenue bonds outstanding. The number of times revenue bond debt service could be paid with net revenues available for debt service, what that would be if we had that. Profitability. This slide, I got a little happy and forgot to take off a couple years. So this one goes back a little further to 2017 than my other slides did. So my apologies for that. But it does show a longer trend line that we have been doing well and improving. This ratio is called return on operating revenue. It's calculated by taking operating income inclusive of depreciation divided by operating revenue. The goal is 5%. For 2023, the percentage came in at 10.22. We're healthy. I want to go see any particular reason why we should hover around there again for 2024.
Todd, are you able to speak to, or Alex, or maybe no one on staff at this moment, this trajectory that makes it look like we've gotten healthier, like what that's based in?
I don't have a good summary on this because I didn't do the deep dive of the whys on this because it's already, because of the length and the reporting requirements, I'm up to 25 slides and I didn't want to get this to be like a 50 slide presentation on it. But I think that in a different setting, a deeper dive on the whys of how we've gotten to where we were and maybe looking at that would be apropos. But to answer your question on this, I don't have a specific reasons to give you that. Profitability, annual operating cash flow. Annual operating cash flow, this ratio is calculated by taking the net operating income plus depreciation divided by operating revenues. The goal for this ratio is to be 27%, and in 2023, the port came in at 33%, and we are kind of fluctuating around there. It largely could change depending on projects that we do next year. There's a lot of impacts that could make this change in the coming year. Sustainability, maintenance, insurance, and environmental costs. So the next 3 slides focus on sustainability. And the first measures the cost of maintenance, insurance, and environmental costs against operating revenue. The goal is 14%. And for 2023, we came in at 33%. With the shift to some environmental costs from 23 to 24, this measure took that kind of an upturn there. And I'm expecting that this is likely to go down in the coming year. Yes.
So Cascade Pole costs are part of this, right?
All environmental costs are in here. Moving on, sustainability, financial capacity measures. This financial capacity measures how much of debt the port could issue based on revenue. Historically, we've used property tax revenue in this calculation as it is what is used to pay the debt service. And the goal is 10 million. And using this metric capacity, the capacity is 3 million. This calculation may change greatly in the coming year based on potential changes to the outstanding debt and the required debt service. By 2028, the debt service will be down to just under $1 million, assuming no new debt is issued. And as you can see, we are not hitting this particular goal, but have not. Move on to sustainability, a return on productive assets. Our last financial measure is the return on productive assets, calculated by taking total assets less non-productive assets to get to productive assets. That sounds a little circular. Net income is divided by productive assets. The goal is 3.5%, and we came in at 4.47%. Productive assets are tangible or intangible items that generate income or appreciate over time. Classic examples of the non-productive asset would be gold or undeveloped land, so that you kind of know what those two things are. Non-productive asset, gold doesn't make any money, but it can increase in value. The only way you could make money would be to sell it, but it's still an asset. A productive asset will generate income.
So lands that can't be developed right now because of the habitat conservation plan are not included as productive assets?
I believe not, but I would have to check that to be sure.
That was my question as well, but I would think that should be part of the calculation.
Sorry, I'm just making sure those questions get captured. And that is all of the financial tests and charts and information. It's a lot to absorb. We covered a lot of territory. I'm available to answer any questions that you got at this time. And if you'd like to have a more specific deep dive, kind of on any one of the subjects, I'm happy to do that as well. I think that I tried to keep this presentation at a high enough level that there wasn't too much to absorb without diving too much into the weeds, but still giving a clear picture of what's financials of the port.
Any questions, comments?
May I ask a question of you, Commissioner?
Sure.
Is this the kind of information that you've historically received about the state of the port's financial health?
This is a similar to the reports we have received. It's one of the things that I think that I've talked with Executive Director Smith about is getting back to, I mean, these reports are one thing. This is fine. This is a good report. However, we don't see the actual financial statements, and we haven't for quite some time. I personally like to see the full financial statements. In fact, I mean, I have, just going through this, I have a couple questions that I'm going to ask Tad here, just because I'm not quite tracking somewhere where some of the revenue's coming from. So, are there any other questions for?
Similar comment is that the why I think would be a lot easier for me, not only to digest, but for the public to also digest as they're reading through some of this. Just some of it's clear, but some of it's a little less clear on the real individual things that were reduced to make some of this happen.
I have one question if you want
Go right ahead.
to get it out before yours. First of all, I want to say, I mean, this is an incredible amount of work, and thank you for putting it together. And I mean, it does pepper us with the questions we want to ask now. I mean, it's a great starting point for that. My tiny technical question, page 10, what is non-ops admin? So what is that? I think it's similar to my question about the environmental thing, like understanding what's in different categories.
Oh, non-operational admin would be administration. That would be me. I'm not an operating unit. I'm purely overhead. So I'm non-operationals administration costs. Marketing, stuff like that.
So I think it would be helpful to me next time when we do a deeper dive to understand everything, what falls into non-ops admin and what falls into environmental costs better. Thank you. And with that, thank you, Chad.
Commissioner Harding, do you have anything you want to add or any questions?
No, I mean, I echo what the other commissioners have said and look forward to the deeper dive so that we can talk about the why and make informed decisions based on that. And I would love a P&L or however is easiest for staff to communicate financials.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons it would be easier for me is because when you have all of these ratios, and you know, which is fine. I understand we have to have those. But I'm going through this and I'm trying to follow and I'm trying to track, and we have the business financial unit report. Then we have the end of year financial report. And then we get back to the ratios and we come up to the debt load, and debt load identifies total revenues. So total revenues at 3, I'm having a hard time understanding what makes up total revenues.
So it's going to be your operational income, basically the revenues generated by the operating units, and also your non-operating income, which would be your ad valorem, which is another roughly $8 million. So if you take your those portions together, you're going to end up at your
26.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that makes more sense.
And you would see that. I understand what you're saying about seeing an actual P&L statement, a full one. What I did here was kind of going through the format of the last 3 years. Some of this is what was done, not done last year. Last year had about an 8-slide deck for the year in review. This goes back to 2 different directors before that. And trying to make sure that I've got all the information out for the required reporting for the 1202 and all the fit equations. They're very dry. I don't know how much that tells. I think one of the things that I've done historically in other roles is to do comparative P&L analysis by business unit. So you can just see how they're tracking. You see their expenses, you see their income, and something along those lines. And that's more of what we're going to look at quarterly, and then also what I'm giving operationally to the business units as well. So they can take a look at their budget, track it over time, see their variances and see how they're performing and see what they can improve or what's tracking wrong.
Yeah, because I mean, even on the return of productive assets, that last graph that you showed us, the net income 4.626. I mean, I don't have any idea where that came from. So, I mean, those are the kind of things that I think full financials would help us identify, or we can just ask you, I guess.
That one I'm going to have to look up. I don't have the numbers right in front of me. So.
Okay.
Well, seeing what a big lift this has already been, I think before that next meeting, it really would be nice to take a small subcommittee of commissioners, and I think Commissioner Chair Isle, you're clearly one of them. And I don't know if it would be Commissioner Harding or who else would want to be on that, to sort of be able to go through these and workshop what kind of information we're really trying to bring. So I'd like to encourage that. And I just wanted to say, as whoever works on that, and Tat, for your sake, that there are members of our public here in Olympia who understand that the port is both a government and operates in some ways in the private sector, but have really strong thoughts about how our taxpayer subsidy is being allocated. And as commissioners, we could either say, oh, we don't need to granularly think about it because look at holistically, like, is the port kind of, are we good? Do you love us or not? Like, that's one way, thumbs up, thumbs down, to think about our taxpayer subsidy and all the ways we relate in the community. But another way is to understand, to the extent we're capable of understanding, how that, you called it ad valorem, that's probably the 8 million, it's the property tax. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So to how that tax subsidy is really being allocated. I understand we can't fully, that there's always art and different ways of seeing things, but ultimately I would like to be able to see that in this next deeper dive. And by having true profit and loss, I mean, you'll basically be able to see where that's filling the gap.
So we've got 3 more sessions with you commissioners on the budget. On May 28th, we'll do the first quarter report. And as Tad said, we're hoping to do it as sort of more of a profit and loss type of look at the operating units and the variances of how they're operating. And then on June 17th, we were going to take a work session and just do a deep dive on our budget. And I propose maybe using that also as an opportunity to identify how the commission moving into the future wants to see numbers reported. But just also to help everybody understand all that Tad and his team are working on it, what the overall financial picture of the port is. And then on July 15th, we're going to extend a work session into a workshop to do the budgeting process for 2025. So it'll be ideally 3 or 4 hours with you all to kind of walk through what each of the business lines and and various operating units are want to do in terms of next year's budget, in terms of operating and then capital expenses as well. So exciting.
All right, any other questions or comments?
There's a lot to absorb and I appreciate that. And those
Well,
100 or so charts at the end there.
Jen put this all together, so thank you, Ted.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so we have, moving on, we have nothing on the action calendar, nothing on the action other calendar. So now it is time for commissioner reports and discussion. Commissioner Tong, would you like to go first?
I was just quickly going to mention the Chamber of Commerce, 150th annual meeting. They're having their celebration here in Port Plaza on July 11th. So looking forward to that. And Commissioner Hardy's speech was just very inspiring on partnership. I enjoyed attending.
Representing District 4 and the rest of Thurston County, I just wanted to extend my thanks for all of the speakers here tonight. The Small Cities Program is extremely a wonderful opportunity to engage with our South County municipalities and support them in their endeavors. And so I really appreciate everyone that came in on Zoom and that were here in the audience, David Watterson and George Sharp. Thank you so much. I appreciate being able to attend the South County committee assignments that I'm on, and we'll be working with George to, get announcements out on South County commission work that I do with committee assignments. So I just want to extend that thanks to you all. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Masavada.
I'm very excited to be going to the Washington Ports Association spring meeting later this week, and I'm sure some of our great port staff will be there as well. Excited to talk to ports that have already entered redevelopment projects to understand how the cleaning up the historic contamination was actually helped by or how redevelopment was actually essential to reaching goals on the cleanup. And that's an issue I think Director Smith is working on pulling together some case studies for all of us, but I'm hoping I'll be able to dig a little deeper in my conversations at the annual meeting. And loved the tour today with my fellow commissioners and being out there in the sunshine at the Marine Terminal, and love the conversation we're starting to have about what the peninsula is going to look like for the future of the city of Olympia. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Harding, quote of the day.
Yeah, on that note, my apologies to the Marine Terminal staff and Warehouser for not being able to attend the tour today and not being there today. I just wanted to summarize just the chamber meeting for the record, the Port of Olympia record. I am just really inspired by this commission. I think it was unclear what tone we were going to take when we expanded to 5 commissioners, and we've really embraced a spirit of collaboration. And as I said in the meeting, we bring each other small gifts when we have something to celebrate or something to mourn. We come prepared to meetings, and I really believe that we are, each and every one of us, interested in serving all of Thurston County. So I'm really grateful for that. And my quote of the day is from Herman Hesse. And he said, "If you hate a person, you hate something in him that is part of yourself. What isn't part of ourselves does not disturb us." Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Harding. I would just like to say I also enjoyed the Chamber's 150th anniversary annual meeting. Great job on your speech, both Executive Director Smith and Commissioner Harding. You guys both did very good job. Made the port proud. Thank you for that. I also enjoyed representing the port at the Lacey South Sound Golf Tournament. I thought for certain we were going to bring a trophy home, but some teams had a little sharper pencils on their scorecards than we did. So we came in tied for 4th, which seemed unbelievable, but okay.
Commissioner, does that mean would our port be represented by a birdie, an eagle?
On several occasions, both.
Okay, congratulations.
Yes. Also enjoyed team there. They had a meeting downtown here last week. That was very good information with them. They're happy to be moving forward with their project. And then the next morning, I also attended the Olympia Yacht Club opening day for boating season. And that was also a very nice event. So I'm just proud to be there and representing the port. So that's all I have. We can move on now to other business. Are there any other business topics?
Sure, I'll.
Yes.
I just have one thing briefly. I noticed on your agenda that the executive session was actually a closed session. And it's not subject to the Open Public Meetings Act. So for convenience, if the board wishes to, it could adjourn after meeting announcements, go into the closed session and not have to come back.
Okay. That sounds like a good idea to me.
Yes.
Sorry, I noticed it during the course of the
Yeah.
meeting. What brought it up.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
All right, so what you're saying is we can go through the meeting announcements and then adjourn, and then we'll
Yeah, and the reason is there's an exception in the RCW. There's several things that are not subject to the Open Public Meetings Act. And the strategy around collective bargaining is one of those things.
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you for that, Rick. Were there any other business?
One small thing,
Sure.
the consent agenda passed with minutes for 15 meetings worth of minutes. It afforded me an opportunity to see also how spare our minutes are. Minutes are not supposed to be transcripts, so I admire spare minutes. But I wonder whether we might want to take a look. I would just ask you, Executive Director, at whether it could include a little bit more information about testimony preferred and conversation.
We'll definitely look at that.
And then on the same note, I made a note to ask you privately, but I was curious as well, is there a meeting note policy? Is there some guidelines on how often these are released? Because 15 in one packet. Right.
Yeah, I think
Not us, but the public again.
we recognize we got behind and it was a hiccup, then we're trying to catch up and then get ahead. So the goal is to have them for every commission meeting. Before that, you would have the minutes of the last meeting to review.
That's a great goal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, meeting announcements.
All righty. All right, on Monday, May 20th, there's a commission work session. We will be discussing broadband, and we've got two different ports coming to Bellingham and Whitman to discuss the broadband projects and systems that they have worked on. On Tuesday, May 21st, there's a Citizens Advisory Committee meeting here in this room at 6 p.m. On Tuesday, May 28th, please note it's Tuesday because Monday is Labor Day. No, Memorial Day. No, Memorial Day. It's Memorial Day. Sorry, I get the two mixed up. So Monday is a holiday, I'll put it that way. And so Tuesday is our regular commission meeting. At that meeting, we'll have the Q1 financial performance along with a number of other items. And then on Monday, June 10th, we have another regularly scheduled commission meeting. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments on the meeting announcements? No. All right, then, hearing no other discussion, nothing left on the agenda, I call this meeting adjourned.